All right, my guest this week is the host of CNN Tonight, self-proclaimed king of Twitter, and one of the few guys in cable news not afraid to tell you what he really thinks. Don Lemon, what's going on?
It's called CNN Tonight with Don Lemon, okay?
Oh, with Don Lemon. With Don Lemon. How long did you have to fight to get that in there?
Not that I'm picky. Listen, everything is important. It all matters. Dave Rubin, how are you?
I'm doing good. It does all matter, and It's funny that you say that because I think that's a good place to start because you have been on this like upward thing forever. We've known each other for probably like 4 or 5 years now, and you did my old Sirius XM show a long time ago, and you were subbing in for a lot of people. You were jumping around show to show, but you have your own gig now. Pretty good, right?
It is pretty good. I mean, it's weird because people say, you've been on this upward trajectory, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't feel that way when you're living it, right? I'm still the same guy. It still feels the same. And I'm still, the struggle is real. But it's great to be in prime time on a major network. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. A show with my name on it. I have no complaints. I live every moment in gratitude right now.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. I wanted to have the first show of the year with you because you're in the thick of it, right? Like every time I turn on the news and something's going down somewhere, they send you there, or you're at the studio, or you're interviewing somebody. So I thought you'd be the perfect person to sort of kick the year off with. But let's get a little bit first. What's like the day-to-day operation? So you have your show at night. What's going on in the world of Don Lemon all day long?
Well, it depends on the day, but I mean, pretty much every night I'm on the air at 10 p.m. And every night between 7 and 8 I have a rundown meeting, and every single morning at 10:30 I have an editorial meeting, and then if I'm up, I try to do the network editorial call at 9. So it can be a very long day, and then I do radio on some mornings at 7. This is all Eastern time.
Yeah.
About 7:15 Eastern time. So it depends. If it's a day I do radio, I'm up at 6:45, 7 o'clock, and I'm giving an editorial on the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and then I try to read in from then and read. The papers are at my door, and then I try to stay awake, and if I do the 9 o'clock editorial call, and then if I don't, I wake up at 10:30 for my show's editorial call, and then I'll try to go back to sleep, but then sometimes other shows will call and ask me to do live shots, to do something I covered the night before, or I'm going to cover that night, or I'll do an interview with Donald Trump, or I'll come in and do a taping like I did today with Rand Paul. It just really depends. So there's no set schedule. So sometimes I get to sleep, other times I don't. And that's it. And so usually I'm here. I try to be, unless I don't have any sleep out. The latest I'll get in is probably like 6 or 6:30.
Yeah.
But usually I try to get in about 4:30.
And you're taking naps that is your office right there. I saw your LSU blanket. So you do take naps.
I was on the couch just before we hooked up on Skype.
Yeah.
We connected on Skype.
Be careful.
I was on the couch, and Crystal, right?
I do.
Yeah. Crystal came in and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Don't go to sleep. You got to Skype with Dave Rubin in 15 minutes. I'm like, I know, Dave. He'll be fine.
It's funny, even the way that you started saying hook up there, and then you immediately have to hedge your bets because you're one of these people, and I want to talk about this a little later on, that everything that you say becomes like this sort of hot button thing. But before we delve into all that stuff, how much news do you actually have to consume every day? Because I know I do an interview show once a week, but I'm in the news constantly. I'm always paying attention to this stuff and on Twitter and doing this whole thing. And there's a certain amount of bandwidth, I think, that you only have in your brain to absorb all this stuff, but you have to know sort of all the stuff that's going on all the time.
That's a very good point. And sometimes I consume so much that I forget, right? Like, oh yeah, I knew that. Like someone will say something, and then I'll go, oh yeah, that's right, I knew. Like today, I was sent out a note on Wayne LaPierre's flip-flop on background checks.
Yeah.
And then someone else reminded me that we did it before, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, we did do that before. And then I looked up why he did it. So there's he has a perfectly legitimate explanation in his head why he did it, but sometimes you just forget. So what I try to do, quite honestly, is not to, I try to be informed without being inundated, because you don't have to know every single thing that's going on in the world. And my show doesn't cover every single thing that's going on in the world. I don't do a traditional rundown news show, like stack, like now this, now this, now this. It's pretty much a theme, and it is the biggest story of the day or the hottest topic or the talker of the day. And usually we try not to do too many subjects, or we try to make them all relate. And we don't do a lot of stars. Like traditionally, when Piers was here and when Larry was here, the hours that I'm in now were like very star heavy and focused. And they didn't do very well. And so we do water cooler talk, provocative conversation, have conversations that people will have at home but not necessarily on television, and it's paid off. And thank goodness, our ratings are great. We're doing great, and we're still going.
Yeah, how much of that comes directly from you? Because I remember when you did my show way back when, whatever that was, 4 or 5 years ago, I think that same week that we met, you had subbed in for Joy Behar over on HLN, and I remember we were having a drink and you were saying how much you like that because it gave you a chance to sort of be yourself and get out of the kind of traditional newsman thing. So are all these decisions in terms of the format and all that, is that all coming directly from you?
Well, it's shared. A lot of it comes from me, and a lot of it comes from the team, our staff, the producers, and our executive producer, Jonathan Wall, who's really great with ideas. And then I'll have ideas as well. It depends on the day. Sometimes, like now, it's a no-brainer. The president is having this big town hall with Anderson this week. He did this thing at the White House. We're going to talk about guns, right? We're going to talk about executive orders. And so that's pretty easy. We're going to talk about what's happening in Oregon. So sometimes it's just pretty self-explanatory. It's our show. It's great to finally have a show and that I don't have to call a newscast, because it's not a newscast. Although when it needs to be, we can quickly become a newscast.
Sure.
That I can give you the 30-second or 15-second elevator pitch between one floor. Biggest story of the day, or biggest talkers. Otherwise, it does not fit. I don't care if you're a movie star. I don't care who you are. If it has nothing to do with the news, if it's not relevant, it's not coming on the show.
Yeah.
That simple.
All right, so before we get into all the meat, and we're going to talk politics and guns and all of that kind of stuff, how did you get into this thing? Did you always want to be on TV? Did you always want to be a news guy? What brought little Don Lemon to be over at Time Warner Center right now?
I was always curious as a kid, and when we would go out and about, my parents, I write about this in my book, which is called Transparent, by the way, that I would just talk to everybody. And, my mom would come and grab me in the restaurant. My dad would always say, don't teach him to be afraid of people. And my mom said after that conversation, she just let me go. So I would just ask people what are you here? Are you on vacation? What are you doing? I've just always been curious. I don't necessarily think that I wanted to be on television, although I liked it. I always wanted to be a journalist. And, people remind me when I go home for holidays or just to visit my family that, you remember you were in college, you used to bring the camera to school. Remember we taped this fake show when you were a kid? Do you remember you used to carry this camera around? And then, or do you remember we had you anchor our high school? And so I forgot a lot of those things. And so it's always been there.
Yeah. So let's talk about the gay thing for just a sec, because I don't.
About you? You're gay?
Let's talk about your gay thing for a second. We can talk about mine too if you want.
There's so much I can go, because let me see that hand. Raise your left hand.
Oh, yeah, I got one of these.
Wow.
I got one of these, yeah.
Crazy, but that's okay. Go ahead.
You can get one too.
I don't.
Didn't you just say, I think if I'm not mistaken, just on air a couple of days ago, you said to somebody, why would you get married? Didn't you say that to Brooke or somebody?
It was somebody in the crowd. Why would you get married? I just think that I don't want to create another controversy.
Yeah.
I don't see the need to run off and get married right away or ever. And I don't know if I'm the marrying kind.
Yeah,
so
that's
it.
Listen, my whole thing, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me on this, is that we should just have the same right that everybody else has.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Yes. That's it. But that's why I don't even want to talk about the gay thing much. So we could literally do just a minute on this. But
I don't mind. I'm just messing with you because we know each other.
No, I know. But to me, and we've talked about this privately, but it's exhausting talking about the gay thing. Gay people shouldn't have to think about it any more than straight people should have to think about their sexuality or any of that. But anyway, you basically came out when your book came out. So it was about 4 years ago, is that right? Came out professionally.
It was 2011. It was funny because I was talking to a friend in Chicago, which was before I came to work at CNN, and he goes, I know, people were saying Don Lemon came out, and he's like, what do you mean Don Lemon came out? Don Lemon has always been out.
Yeah.
So since I've been out since my 20s, but it wasn't something that I talked about on the air or shared publicly. But My bosses knew. I would bring my boyfriends to the Christmas party. I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but the public didn't know. I would host events for like gay events in Chicago and have you. So I was basically out. So when people say, it took you 45 years to come out, I'm like, well, not really. I think I had to do it because there was so much confusion. And when you're in the public eye, I think it's important that you say, at least when I came out, that you had to make a declaration because it's important for young people who are at home, people who may be struggling, people who may have doubt. And I want people to know, like, hey, you can be a gay person and you can host a show on CNN and it is okay.
Yeah, so that's the part that I wanted to talk about, because this is exactly what we talked about 4 years ago, that there was so much going on with gay rights. There was so much happening at the moment. And in a way, as a public person, it's sort of, you had like this extra pressure of, if I'm going to talk about this on air, I have to be authentic about it, right? Like, how much of that did you actually really feel?
Well, no one forced me. I started writing a book about, sort of my exploits as a journalist and writing about my childhood and, how I grew up and whatever. And I just thought it would be disingenuous to write a book like that and not include it. Yeah. So it's like, telling everything about your life except for that, one important thing that one thing that is really important. It's not all of who I am, but it is an important part of my life. And I think it's important, again, for other people to be able to see someone like me or like a Dave Rubin who people who are successful and who just happen to be gay. So yeah, there was a lot of pressure on me, and there was a lot of pressure too, as a person of color, to come out.
Yeah, isn't it cool how it's so irrelevant? I mean, that's even why I'm prefacing this by saying, let's just
it's irrelevant
two
to you.
Seconds. Yeah.
Listen, let me tell you, it's irrelevant to you, and it's irrelevant to many people who live in big cities. Like, you're in LA now, I'm in New York, and we met when you lived in New York. So for us, it's easy because there is no place where I am in the closet. My entire team knows, the audience knows, my family knows, the people at the barbershop know. Like, I don't really care what Bob at the barbershop thinks about me or of gay people, because I am completely out. And that is, to a lot of people, that's not reality. And it's strange to certain people, especially certain demographics and certain ethnicities. People aren't quite that out yet. I think it's easier for you as a white man to be out.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll delve into some of the racial stuff. So my last thing on the gay thing is, do you think there is something about gay people in general, that there are so many out gay people in news right now? I mean, you take and you take
overachievers
and Anderson and Rachel Maddow and Thomas Roberts and there's a half out guy on Fox even. He may be out already. I'm not sure. I'm not even going to name him.
I don't know who you're talking
about.
You
don't even have to smile or look at the camera or whatever. But my point is that for some reason,
you're talking about O'Reilly?
Yeah, he's definitely gay, that guy, I'll tell you. No, but you know my point, that there's a lot of out people that people get there. There's something comforting in a weird way, or something about gay people. Am I onto anything there?
Yes, there's something comforting about gay people. We're loving people.
We're loving people.
But here's the thing. I don't think, Dave, that those numbers are any different than any other profession. I think that there have been some people who are brave enough to step up in this profession, because I feel that if you're a journalist, you take an oath. Much like you do if you have a Juris Doctorate when you become an attorney, if you have it when you take the medical oath when you become a doctor. I think that journalists really feel that. You have an obligation to inform people. You have an obligation to tell the truth. You have an obligation to be as unbiased and objective as any human being can be. So I think that when you're in this business, in order to get the truth from people, in order to be truthful, you have to live who you are. And if you can't put different rules on other people that you put on yourself. And so I think that maybe people are just more visible because it's a visible medium, obviously. And I just think that, we sort of take that oath. But I think there are plenty of gay doctors, there are plenty of gay lawyers, there are plenty of gay politicians, as we have seen. Yeah. There are plenty of gay people in the clergy, and on and on and on. I don't think it's any different. I just think that we happen to be more visible.
For the record, I have a friend who's a gay janitor. So we're in every occupation that there is.
I know gay athletes, I know gay everything. Yeah. Everything. So there you go.